Okay, everyone, Tuesday the 9th of January, and some breaking news. Hot off the press. People won't even know what we're about to say, although it's maybe something people would have expected. Celtic Football Club on Twitter /X, whatever it's called, around half a minute ago, Yosi Iguchi has today joined J-League champions Vissel Kobe on a permanent transfer. Best of luck, Yoski. It's over, guys. The dream of an Iguchi return, him lifting a league title above his head, Ryan, he's left, and he's left permanently. What's your kind of immediate thoughts on that?
Well, the Gucci gang is over. It's to be expected, to be honest with you. He's had not really any impact on the team whatsoever. I know he had a couple of fleeting appearances, get that bad injury against Alloa, I remember, in one of his first games out, and never really seemed to recover from that. Out of the three, I remember, I don't want to put them all together, but the three Japanese players were signed at the same time. Out of those three, he was the calculated risk out of the three. I think he was the one that was least likely to make a massive impact, and that's turned out to be the case. I think it's went in order of the rankings, to be honest with you, for those three players. But yeah, it's a good move from Vissel Kobe, the reigning champions of the J1 League. So good luck to him. I hope he can get his career back on track, because I know he's been very stop-start in his career. That Leeds move seemed to halt a lot of things, and he went to Gamble Saka, got himself together. So I'm just hoping that this can be a bit of a revival for him, because there's clearly a good player there. It's just, I don't know if it's down to injuries or a lack of physicality, but it just didn't work out for him. But all the best.
Yeah, he spent part of 2023 at Avispa Fukuoka, which you really need to work out how you're going to say that and not have that after a few pints. He was always someone who kind of was struggling a bit to make the breakthrough. Kevin, I guess it's just positive that we're starting to move these people on. Is that how you come down on it?
Yeah. Hopefully the first of a few. I'm glad for him, because you want players to be playing regularly. You want talented players to be showcasing their talents, and yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. Of those purchases at that time, it wasn't just us. There was others as well saying, well, there's a talented player there, but we'll see how he gets on. It's a calculated risk. But it's important that, I don't want to introduce a kind of moral aspect to this, but it's important that Celtic also do these things properly. And I think other people kind of see how clubs conduct themselves in these with these kind of types of scenarios. And I think having a kind of talented young player like that, and getting him back to his to somewhere that he'll feel comfortable at, and making sure that he has, and he was given a fair crack at the whip. Nobody could have foreseen the injury, but that just happens. I'd like to see a bit of more movement. I think, as I said last week, I'm less concerned about getting quite a few people in than moving on 2 or 3 players who are just ossifying, in the squad, and it's not fair to them either. So, we've still got 2/3 of the transfer window to go.
But that's the positive way to look at it. 2/3 to go. The other people, I'm sure they'll be along in the comments, and rightly so, will be saying we're a third of the way in and we've not signed a player yet. And it's that's the way football fans look at it. And I must admit, I wouldn't say I'm quite a laid back supporter in general. I was one of those in the summer that when people were getting really uptight, and looking back, that was very fair, and it's turned out to be probably correct. I was very much like, nah, give it time, we'll sign folk eventually, and we didn't really. But I do feel kind of relatively calm. But as we say, it's like the 9th of January today. I was kind of hoped we'd at least heard a report of a signing being close. As we said yesterday, Ryan, things can turn pretty quickly. I did hear about from a source, quite a reliable source in Korean football, that apparently Kwon isn't going to be going back to Korea this month. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes if he moves on out on loan, because I think he would be another one you'd look to move on. But there's a number of players there. Like, how important do you think it is, Ryan, that like the squad is trimmed? Because it just seems like there's a lot of players in training when you see the photos who just clearly aren't in Rodgers' plans.
Yeah, there's guys you don't even see in training, and I hate to bring him up again, and be that one example, but you don't even see James McCarthy in those videos. So, and he's another player that's still on the books at Celtic. 4-year deal. He's halfway through it. We'll see how long.
Didn't
he
even
stays.
make the season club photo this year, James McCarthy.
No, it's an interesting one. Yeah, he's had no. I think the only game time he's had was for the B team, a fleeting appearance for the B team. But yeah, it is important to get these guys out as much as it is to bring players in. I think Brendan Rodgers was saying before at the iguchi it would have been 32 was the first team squad. That's far too many to work with. Even for training, it's difficult to put training on with that amount of players. It needs to be a smaller group for training to begin with, so that the core group knows who they're playing with. If they're playing with different people all the time, then it's going to be convoluted, and it's going to be quite messy. So yeah, it is important to get these players out, but only the players out that aren't contributing whatsoever to the squad. If there's deals to be made in terms of getting players out that maybe do play some games, but maybe don't get full game time or don't start matches, then that could be the case also. I think they've got to look at Turnbull as well. I know I keep on mentioning him if my voice doesn't go, but Turnbull's only got 6 months left on his deal. What is going to happen with that? Has he been offered an extension? Is he going to sign the extension? If not, then he's free to talk to anybody in January, and he's a first team player. I think Ronaldo's overtaken him in the team, to be honest. But who's he playing for? From January onwards, he's probably playing for his next move, to be honest with you. So it's not just the players that aren't getting game time. It's maybe the players that are getting game time that don't have a long term future that have got to be looked at. But I think they need to get more out than in, to be honest.
Fabrizio Romano tweeted as well last night, guys. I don't know if you saw it, saying Bologna are interested in Celtic 18-year-old talent Rocco Vata as a potential opportunity for the January transfer window. Talks expected to take place soon, and more will follow as interest in the Irish talent is now growing. They were in for O'Reilly as well in the summer, weren't they, Bologna? From memory. So Rocco Vata potentially, again, I think that's one people are expecting at this stage, Kevin, because again he's in the last 6 months of his contract and isn't going to make it.
I think we've discussed, or maybe it was Johnny, I think a while ago we discussed the kind of conundrum, this situation with Rocco Vata. And it's amazing. It's amazing for a young player who has never played. Has he played an entire 90 minutes for the Celtic first team? It's amazing how many times his name crops up with people, just friends, family. What about that Rocco Vata? I hear great things about him, and then it turns into what's happening with Rocco Vata, and then you see social media posts about interest in him by other good solid clubs, and you wonder what's going on there. You two might have your ear closer to the ground at Celtic than me, but I don't know why is he not being quoted neither by Brendan Rodgers or by Ange Postecoglou, because he seems to be a very talented player who's rated at that level by anybody who sees him play. I'm
guessing, just reading between the lines, that the fact he's not wanting to sign a new contract is the issue right now. That's this season. As for previous to this season, he made a couple of appearances under Postecoglou, but he wasn't good enough last season to play minutes. I mean, we had so many good wingers in terms of Jota and Abada and Maida, and even, guys like James Forrest chipping in. There's probably another player I've forgotten there as well. And Vata was like 5th or 6th down the pecking order. So he got a few games, and I think there's certainly talent there. I think he scored maybe a couple of goals in his Ireland 21s debut. I think he's going to go on to have a good career, but it's just like, if he's not wanting to commit to Celtic this season, then what's the point in his playing?
Yeah, I mean, if he isn't, but I have this kind of feeling that I've had. I've got a kind of Liam Miller feeling about him that he'll go on, because I saw the Ireland games and yeah, I mean, I've seen some of his action in the hoops, and I thought there's a very talented player there.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, if he goes on as a great career in a couple of years' time, we're going, why did we let him go? This guy's now worth 15, 20 million quid. But there's a general point here as well about these players. And you were talking about a squad of, 31, 32. I've spoken to a couple of former pros over the years about what happens when you've got players who clearly don't want to be there, or who clearly aren't part of the manager's plans, and how it affects training. And you mentioned, Ryan, about it be 31, 32 being an unwieldy number when you're trying to set up a kind of tight, sharp, disciplined training session. But the other thing is the morale of the squad. Because these players, especially somebody like David Turnbull, who's been around for a few years, they make friendships. There's good relationships that are made there, and they're human beings, and they won't have the same edge when they're doing training, and they'll be talking to their friends, and there might be perceived unfairness, and it just kind of erodes, or it has the potential to erode a feel-good, kind of professional, rewarding atmosphere at the ground. And that's why it's important, quite apart from the kind of overweening size of the squad, it's important to move these guys on for them, and for the kind of, if you like, the moral health, the kind of well-being of the squad.
Yeah, you need a kind of trim squad with everyone willing to contribute. Brown Warrior making a point that I think a lot of people would make, and this is on Rocco Vata, by the way. We're talking about Rocco Vata. Why would you commit to playing in the Lowland Leagues against university level opponents? He's referring to the Celtic B team. And I get that to an extent, the fact that that's where Vata is at the moment, and why wouldn't you go and move and try somewhere like Bologna? I mean, what an opportunity with the kind of record they have with young players coming from Scotland recently. But like, it works the other way as well. If he should have been given more of an opportunity, but I also feel like if he'd wanted to commit to Celtic that bit longer, I think he would have got opportunities this season. I'm pretty sure of that, Ryan, given the injury troubles we've had.
Listen, he's not going to make it at Celtic, and the reason for that is if he was going to, then he would have got in that team ahead of the likes of Mikey Johnson, ahead of James Forrest in that period where Celtic were struggling for wide players. That was the great opportunity for him to come in and showcase how good a young player he was. But I'm guessing it's because he's not signed a new deal. The fact that loads of teams are in for him, he doesn't want to commit his future. Celtic shouldn't play him then. Celtic have got to keep themselves right. They shouldn't be developing other players for other teams, rather. They should be keeping themselves right. Regardless if that hurts the player's development. At the end of the day, Celtic are a business and they're a football club, and they've got to keep themselves right. It is disappointing the way it's gone, because I thought he showed nice glimpses, especially against Hibs away. I think he came on at Easter Road and he looked quite good. There was a good chance that he put into the ball into the box for I think that was
Motherwell.
At home. Was it Motherwell? Yeah. And it was a really good opportunity. should have scored, so Vata should have had an assist. He put it on a plate for him, basically. But we've seen nothing from him this season apart from B team updates. It seems to be every second goal is a goal from Vata in the B team, yet he can't get anywhere near the first team. He's just biding his time until his next move, unfortunately. It's unfortunate the way that these things transpire, but I think just in general, if you're a young player that's looking for game time, and I don't think Celtic's one of the first places you're going to go to, just due to the climate of the way Celtic need a winning mentality. They don't really want to put in young players unless they're outstanding in their field, such as a Kieran Tierney, who was, it was luck how he got into the first team, but you could see the talent was definitely there. He then displaced Izagiri. Look at Cal McGregor, he had to go away out on loan, came back, and he was 21 before he made his debut. James Forrest was an outstanding talent. Unless you're a clearly outstanding talent, Celtic won't play youngsters in games. They'll always go for the probably the more expensive option from further afield.
That's the point I just wanted to bring up. You mentioned 3 players there who were terrific young players who made it impossible for the manager not to pick them, all 3 of them. And even Callum McGregor, his kind of story was a bit kind of frayed in that he leapt onto the scene and then really struggled for probably a season and a bit, and then kind of emerged to become this brilliant Celtic player. James Forrest, whatever people say, has been a brilliant Celtic player over the years, what he's contributed. Kieran Tierney was just an unbelievable left back. You look at someone, Ben Summers' name's come up in the chat a wee bit today, and he's someone we saw a bit last season. I thought he looked good. Now, I must admit, I've not seen a lot of Dunfermline this season, where I think he's still on loan. But you don't exactly hear that he's like an absolute standout at that level. And I just wonder if, like, is it just that for whatever reason we're not producing these top young players anymore? I think Ben Doak, I mean, we know kind of relatively what happened there with him and why he left and all of that stuff, but he looks like a top talent who could have made it and played for Celtic's first team. But is Ben Summers or Rocco Vata, are they actually those kind of players? Is it that we just don't produce the top players anymore? Why would that be the case? It's always a tough debate, guys. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that at all.
Just on Ben Summers, I know that he scored a good goal on Friday night against Queen's Park at Hampden, but apart from that, that's really the first I've seen of him this season. It's not as if he's been at least I've not like you, I've not watched a lot or any of Dunfermline's games, so I won't know the ins and outs of how he's been doing this season, but
you don't hear that he's like a standout, though.
And if you're not a standout for Dunfermline, you're not going to play for Celtic, unfortunately. And as harsh as that sounds, you need to be a standout when you're away out on loan, otherwise you're not going to come back and make an impact in the first team. And that's just the cold hard truth of it. Look at Christie. Christie was a standout at Aberdeen, came back and was a first team player for Celtic. Even then, when he came back, there was doubts that he was even going to make the first team. You know, there was all the talk about John McGinn at that point as well, but he came back and he was and he worked for his opportunity. But it's not a guarantee, even if you do have a good loan spell. But you know, I think the bare minimum is you've got to stand out in your time away from the club to go back and ply your trade at Celtic.
Kevin?
I would slightly disagree with that. I think that we as supporters and also perhaps the club have double standards when it comes to young Scottish players especially, and how much time they're given to develop or to make an impact. I mean, you could add somebody like Tony Ralston as well to that. I mean, Tony Ralston didn't have, by any measure, an outstanding loan spell.
That's true.
With St Johnstone or Dundee United. But, and I know he's at the moment he's on the fringes because Alistair Johnson has been playing out his skin. But Ange Postecoglou appreciates people who work hard, you know, who've got the desire, who've got the commitment, and are prepared to listen and improve parts of the game that need improvement, right? And that applies to especially to young players. And you know, we've spent fortunes, absolute fortunes over the last 10, 12 years on players in the can afford to the £3 to £4 million bracket who've done, you know, next to nothing for Celtic. But we'll give them 5 or 6 games, you know, quite often because you know, we've made that outlay. They'll be on a decent salary as well. Some of them, quite frankly, look like, you know, favours to agents, you know, for a bit of business down the line. But young Scottish players, and I think, you know, I hear what you're saying about Rudi Vata. We shouldn't be here to be developing, you know, his next destination's player. But you know, we were in a bit of trouble. You know, the wheels were just slightly beginning to come off, I'd be like, I don't care if this guy's good. And I remember that ball he played in at Motherwell, it should have been finished off. If the manager, if somebody actually thinks that no matter where he's going, what he's committed to, if he's better or he's a better prospect than 2 or 3 others above him, simply because they've committed to the club, get him, lad. The fans won't give a toss who scores the winner. If it's a guy and they know that he's not going to be there next season. But again, I wonder, and I won't labour this. Promise, I'll finish in a minute. But there was my nephew, Kieran Tierney. Sorry, not Kieran. Kieran McKenna, who played for a few years and then went to America. He knocked back a Celtic contract, went to America, Duke University, to get his degree. He's not set the head of the light since then because he decided to go to interrupt his career by going to America to study. But I remember him telling me that he used to be in despair looking at other young players who he thought were very, very talented at Celtic. And he knew and they knew that they were probably destined for, St Johnstone or Kilmarnock, maybe Motherwell or Ross County. And they knew that they weren't ever going to get anything like the same chance. Now, you might kind of debate whether they fell into that category of absolutely outstanding. But see, at the same stage of their career, you wouldn't have said that about Callum McGregor. It was a different time. Celtic probably weren't playing at the same level, or there wasn't the same demands then, especially with European football. And it also was because Rangers, for a large part of that, weren't in the league. But we definitely, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody, apply double standards when it comes to young Scottish players and players that we spent £3 or £4 million on.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and a few people pointing out as well that if you give young players an opportunity, sometimes that's all they need, and we kind of saw that with like Anthony Ralston, didn't he? Like the first time he actually got a proper run of consistent games in the first half of Postecoglou's first season, he kind of rewarded us, and it's happened with a number of players in the past. Liam Scales.
Has just been, it's just been wonderful to see his development.
Yeah,
he was almost.
I know. He was. I know. I saw Charlie Mulgrew talking about Liam Scales the other day and saying there's similarities, or he sees similarities with himself in the way that he'd kind of been at Aberdeen and then come back to Celtic, and they're obviously both left-sided, neat and tidy on the ball, centre backs, and it's an interesting comparison there. The video, Ryan, is titled Where Celtic Must Strengthen. We're 23 minutes in and we've not really tackled that. Where are we with transfer stuff? Is you can just say it's absolute nothing's happening, mate.
It's a quiet one, mate, to be honest with you. Kind of scrambling about to see if there's any rumours going about, but that's all they are at the moment. It seems as if Celtic and Rangers are getting linked with the same players, which is pie in the sky stuff to begin with, because Celtic and Rangers will identify different players. I think Celtic will be on a different wavelength to Rangers with regard to scouting different players. Gelhardt was linked. A striker
signed him in Football Manager. Genuinely, Football Manager did very well for me. It's funny that how things work out.
He's definitely a workhorse, that's for sure. But he's one of these strikers that doesn't really have the greatest goal scoring record.
No.
Which it's terrible. It's naive, but at the same time, you're looking at a striker. You want a striker to be coming in and scoring goals, especially due to the fact that O is away at the Asia Cup at the moment. I know Kyogo's still there, so he'll be starting every single game. I mean, that was the case before O went, to be honest, but it's pretty much confirmed that Kyogo will start every game. I want to see Celtic linked with the positions that they need to be linked with. Left back for me is the biggest area, even though Greg Taylor's had a really good past couple of matches. His game against Rangers was good. His game against St Mirren after that was great. He had a really, really good game by all accounts. But I just think, he's unopposed in that position because Bernabei isn't competing with him whatsoever. It's I need to sometimes remind people Bernabeu's still at the club. He cost 3.75 million, and he probably gets as much game time as Rocco Vata now. It's just it's a disaster. That was a disastrous signing. And it was
might be one
it
of
was
the
one
worst,
of Mark.
by the way.
It was one of Mark Lawwell's first signings, you can tell, because that's his area of expertise in South America. He signed players from Girona, etc., from South America to go there. But I think he's going to have to do better the next time he goes into that market, because if anyone couldn't see that Bernabeu couldn't control a ball, he can't really tackle. He can't really cross a ball that well either. I don't really know what he's good at, to be honest, and that's terrible to say that, but I don't know what his strengths are in his game besides the fact he's quick. And yeah, he's not contributing whatsoever. So it was just another waste of money, to be honest.
Yeah, left back's a big one. Is there anything on Thiago Araujo? Is that going quiet? It's
going very quiet. You just heard the original link. Stuart Ross did a scouting report and said he was basically the opposite of what Greg Taylor was. He'd be the complete polar opposite. He's quite athletic. He's not the best passer in the world, but he's good at getting to the byline and getting crosses into the box. He's that sort of attack. He's an attacking fullback. He's more imposing than what Greg Taylor is. I think that's important in a Brendan Rodgers team. Yes, I know there's been exceptions. You look at Ricardo Pereira for Leicester, who wasn't the biggest, but he was a really good player for Leicester. But I think if you're in a Brendan Rodgers team, you need to be strong and athletic. You look at Lustig, you look at Tierney, those guys both really succeeded in a Brendan Rodgers team, and that's because they were physical, imposing, and they could get to the byline and get crosses into the box.
Kevin, where are you in left back stuff? Is it a position you want to see someone signed?
Yeah, if for no other reason that our ideal is having every position covered by somebody who can hit the ground running when he's asked to come in. And, no matter how well Greg Taylor might have been playing, we still needed that cover because, as you said, Ryan, Bernabeu's just been a massive disappointment. Another one of those kind of expensive players that we wasted time on, basically. And Greg Taylor has produced in the last couple of games, especially in the second half against Rangers. But we just need competition in that area. And I'd like to see the option of a big marauding fullback, full of personality, charging down that one, getting to the byline quickly, having the athleticism to get back. I've been fairly comfortable on the ball. I've also seen rumours about Scott McKenna, both us and Rangers, been linked. I think.
Is he a relation, Kevin?
No, he's not actually.
No.
I think they've been debunked, and I hope they have, because I just don't think I've seen some of his appearances. He did well for a while at Nottingham Forest down south. I remember him playing at Parkhead, but I just don't think he's got that kind of level of sophistication and know-how to be kind of slotting in as a potential first team player. We don't need another centre half. Our midfield, again, I hope we're not tempted to get somebody in the midfield just because we've got a couple of we might manage to get a couple of players out the door. We probably need. I'm not convinced by O as a backup anyway, even if he wasn't unavailable for the next few weeks. We should be looking, if not now, then with a view to the summer, at a quality second striker. But again, somebody that comes in with a promise of goals, comes into the team. And we don't have that with O. But I don't want to just, start splashing cash or getting in loanees in January. I think, as I said a couple of weeks ago, it's a perilous time for clubs, and we shouldn't feel that pressurised. We're not second, we're top of the league at the moment, having had a blip, come back with 4 successive wins. and all our top players, all the ones who were injured, are coming back and will be available after, in the next couple of weeks and after the Asian games. So we're not under anything like the same amount of pressure as Rangers or other clubs down south who are, similarly looking to strengthen. So let's not do any panic buys, please.
Yeah, for me, it's quality rather than quantity. I don't think we need like a half a dozen players or anything like that. It's just for me, a left back who can either come in and start. That's the ideal thing, or improve Greg Taylor and give him some competition. If bringing in a left back bumps Greg Taylor on to the levels we saw last season, then that's fine. But ideally, someone who can really come in and challenge, not kind of a Bernabe who even at the time seemed a bit of a kind of projecty one. I'd like projecty. It's not even really a word, is it? But you know what I mean. Some sort of player who can come in and start for us pretty quickly. And as I say, that could improve Greg Taylor, but ideally someone who can contribute. And for me, probably a winger. I still feel we're a wee bit short in the wing areas. I'm not as fussed about a forward as a lot of people seem to be. But I take the point about Kyogo's shoulder, etc., that everyone kind of mentions. Robert saying, I'm sure everyone is overreacting. I think Celtic are just starting to get things together, and I think Celtic will buy it and pull away from the rest. Danny Boy, the fact we haven't signed anyone so far makes me wonder what the hell have we been doing the last few months as far as scouting is concerned. I'm very sceptical now. Des Harkin, there was a wave of panic with the drop of form and hence the buy talk. We still have a good squad, so no need for any big buys at this stage, IMO. And David saying, morning boys, for sunny Clyde Bank. I don't believe that for a second. Paulo Bernardo is different class and Palma will kick on. Need a striker, not Shankland, but like the look of Miovski, he scores in big games. So that's where we're at the moment. Maybe by tomorrow's video, guys, we'll have a proper transfer rumour to get involved in. Anything else happening, Ryan?
It's the winter break, so not too much is happening apart from the transfer rumours. So nothing really, unfortunately, to write about or talk about. But yeah, we'll try our best to make these shows as interesting as possible. But there's no other rumours at this point in time apart from Benjamin Siegrist nearly going to Sturm Graz. But I think the deal has been called off at the 11th hour.
I thought he was heading for Australia because of his partner.
Yeah.
But
I thought the same. But no, it seemed as if he was getting linked with Sturm Graz, but that seems to be off. Another signing, Benjamin Siegrist. What was the point in that one? He's third choice. He should be at least second choice. Given the resume he had at Dundee United. I thought he was one of the better goalkeepers in the Scottish Premiership. But for whatever reason, 2 managers in a row just haven't fancied him. So I don't know what that's down to, but it's another failure in the transfer window for Celtic and Mark Lawwell. He's not got the best record, Mark Lawwell, in his 2 years, I would say.
That's putting it very politely, Ryan.
Yeah. The pressure's on this month for him then. Hopefully he can deliver. And just a wee, just for Robert, who was chatting to us before the video, says he loves the MPH group shout out. His highlight of the video apparently, so I'll just do it very quickly for him. Big shout out to MPH Group for sponsoring this video. As you know by now, Robert, they are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trades specialists. They cover mainland Scotland, and Robert, as you know, they have an enticing Navian boiler winter promotion just for you. If you choose them, you're choosing top-tier efficiency. You'll also be getting a free Navian internet controller. Navian are the big dogs. They're gunning for Product of the Year at the H&V News Awards. So Navian tick, MPH Group tick. Get involved. Thanks to them for sponsoring this. Right, we're heading off now. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Ryan, for your time. I have been Hamish, and we'll chat to you this time tomorrow.